pandemic in town, and it's taking creators down a rabbit hole of corruption in a Massachusetts town. It strikes at the heart of bloggers, no matter podcaster or receiver. It can strike you like a Lexus, then you've got Karen Red River fever. While all the symptoms are quite acute, and you'll ask things differently by far, you will utter what if anything, or you'll be screaming outside back. You'll swear she said I hit him 3 times, while making butt dials as well. No matter how hard you try to fight it, you just can't unring that bell. So once you finally say I'll allow it, like Auntie built the darn diva, you'll find yourself behind that buffer zone,
and you've got Karen Red fever. Karen Red. Not Reed, Red. Hello, good morning. One day I'll play you the rest of that song. There's a couple more choruses of that, I think. But I didn't want it to be too long as an intro. Top of the morning to you all. How are we? We have a new StreamYard function. We have chat on screen. To be nice. No. No, don't. That's boring. So, yes, Miss Tricia, you are correct. Miss Beverly came in this morning and said that there was an issue that she needed to discuss with the jurors one by one, and there's no audio or cameras. So that is what the holdup is. Now, I was going to look for the other day when I think it was at the end of Alessi's cross, she had this glare on someone, and I thought it was, and then there was, as I was looking at Court TV's comments as well, someone just flat out said, "Oh, we'll wait for it, there'll be at least one juror going in the next couple of days." Let me see if I can find it. But day 20, like, not really sure how they cleared the whole second floor of the court. Really? I had it on mute, so I didn't listen to what she'd actually said. Really? I'm going to have to go back and watch it now. Let me just see if I can quickly... Oh, no, that's today's. Yeah, because I know that he immediately went into a sidebar and then she got up. There it is, I think. Okay. Did you get redirected there last night? I'd forgotten that I'd done that. But it didn't come up in his chat, so let's share the screen, shall we? Oh, now I've rearranged it because of the new chat layout. So not sure, I'll work out. I don't like change, but gee, come on. Oh, missed it. L. Good morning, jurors. Yeah. What does Court TV's chat have to say about that? Oh, what about oh, I haven't oh, yeah, what the I've got 2 tabs open. I'm watching one and yeah. So they cleared the whole I wanna have a look at the chat. I saw on another chat that a friend of Brennan's is on the jury. More Discord harassment from Amber? Who's Amber? Okay, hang on. This chick seems to know a bit. Page. Warning from the judge. The judge may issue a caution to the juror about the improper conduct. Oh, hang on. Let me go back. Okay. About improper conduct. Replacement by an alternate juror. If misconduct is serious enough, the judge may remove the juror and replace them with an alternate. Mistrial. In some cases, the misconduct may be so significant that it could lead to a mistrial, requiring the case to be retried. Contempt of court or criminal charges. In extreme cases, a juror's misconduct could result in contempt of court proceedings or even criminal charges. Wow. Oh, this chick is convinced that she is she'll either replace one of the jurors or call for mistrial. Uh, 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 no, no. Let me see if I can find because she really glared at someone like I gave them the dirtiest look. And I thought I actually maybe Dan sent it to me because she was clipping a view too. You see what that was? What? Couldn't prove the file. There's a problem playing this video. Oh, come on! Come on! Oh, you for real? For goodness sake. Can't even open that. What if I directly put it into Drive? Yeah, I've had an interesting afternoon or late evening. I'll just put it there if I can. Couldn't preview file. There's a problem playing the video. All right, now let's see if I can play it out of my Drive. Where did I put it now? I'll look under recent, hey? Recent. That'll tell me. There it is. Come on. Open with media player. Yep. Sweet. Yes, my I went out to take my bins out this afternoon or this evening, and my neighbours were just making the weird ass noises. It was like, what's going on here? Okay, let me see if it's the glare. No. Poop noodle. Delete that. Come on, get out. Yes, they were making some weird ass noises, and they annoyed the shit out of me. Like, fuck. Their bathroom and toilet is right next door to my front door, so I recorded it. And oh, hello, hello, how are we? Did you want to come up, Dan, for a bit? So whilst we're waiting for Auntie Beck and Bev. I will put it in. There you go. I'll chuck the link in chat for you. And I'll play this from my neighbours. Like, fuck. I don't know who it was, but tell me if you can hear it. So I'm out watering the garden. Well, the pots. How on earth can you see those comments on screen? Like if you're on a mobile. It doesn't allow me to alter them. Can you hear that? Like my air conditioner. My air conditioner is right under the toilet window. I don't know. I don't know. But this is what I've had to listen to for probably close to 2 hours. They're lovely. They're really good. Say what you like, love. It sounded like she was like gagging and then crying. Oh, that's me picking up my phone. Fucking shit I've got to listen to. Oh, it's repeating. Hang on. I don't want to lose. Stop looking. We don't want to hear you anymore. Fuck off. Yeah. The glare. Focus, Jodie, focus. I think it was day 18. I think. Come on, work. Work, you motherfucker. Why? Oh. Why has Jeffrey Dahmer come up in my feed? What are your thoughts, Dan, on Mr. Burgess? No, no, I've heard that, I think. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. Maybe the fire extinguisher went in the wrong way. I don't know. Day. What is wrong with my mouse? What the fuck is the Karen Reid playlist on here? The fuck? Are you for shiz? Oh, for goodness sake. Day 18. Right. Now, it was.
Yes or no?
No, with mitochondrial DNA, you can't say that.
Correct.
Now, this should not have been allowed to.
You're not aware it was
not on the analysis that we performed.
okay. You're not the hair. To me, sorry.
Profile.
This is about arguing over.
Maternal populations,
Oh, yeah,
I can't exclude anybody maternally related to John O'Keefe as well.
Thank you very much, sir. You are all set.
No. The next one. Damn it.
Yes, I do.
And what is your opinion? Graph on
No one cares because
Lockheed
you're a liar.
reported your analysis.
Pants on fire.
Lights, please. That's as good as they can be, huh? With one's burnt out. I'll see Counselor Tether. Just a minute.
Mother fudger. It was like the biggest greasy. It was like Mama's look like. Ooh.
Any idea?
May I approach, Your Honor? Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. May I have this marked as the next exhibit for identification, please, Your Honor? Vehicle acquisition attempt, correct?
That was
Fred's in my own. That was nasty.
Case 1162-2 text stream event. 2025. And in a pretty detailed manner?
yes, it did.
And didn't he use GPS location data?
Trigger.
A
Come on. Dang, damn it. You got yourself all lumped up in a pickle. Look at that. Actually, don't think that was it, but might be here. She looks over at the jurors and does the big. What are they waiting for?
About pocket state.
Sure.
And this one,
I don't know.
Independent researcher.
Oh. Fuck it. I don't know. But yes, she. Oh, X might have it. If you want anything fast, look on frickin' Twitter. Oh, yeah. Did you see this? Apparently there's a Facebook post, because you know how he said that he wasn't, if I can make it bigger, wasn't a...
C22
I'm ready for a
does
break.
not, well, let me back up this way. You testified on direct that you're involved.
He wasn't an accident reconstructionist. Well, there was a Facebook post from his uncle stating something a little bit different. Yeah. So the 100-car pile-up, apparently. And Shannon Burgess got his hands full in Texas investigating this accident, especially with all the freezing bitter cold temperatures. So I would like to know just how much Brennan did know. Whether he thought it was too good to be true and just didn't bother looking that far, or knew and decided to bury it. Home, that's where I need to be. That'll have all the... Okay. Show 110 posts. Mhm. Or maybe I'm lying. Oh, what's that? Trending on the jury. Oh, yeah. Someone said this was a her signaling. See that? Waiting for Brennan to
Objection.
Why does she
I'm gonna see it side by side.
smile at the end of that? Like,
column
weird.
of pocket state with regard to the phone of Mr. and whether it refreshes your recollection on.
Okay, stop now. This happened in the last Canberra trial. All of a sudden, there's a problem with the jury, and just like that, any juror who is showing favour to the defence instantly removed. Don't believe me? Go watch the last trial. Oh, we've seen it. Don't speculate. I just fuck with the jury as I see fit. And this is the part in the trial where biased Judge Bev throws off the first pro-Canberra juror. Daddy John, what did you do with the jury today? You all think a juror got caught talking about the case, or maybe some of them complained about one of their own? I don't know. I'm just speculating. Judge Canoni has ejected the First Amendment from the courtroom in the Karen Reid trial. Potential jury tampering afoot. Oh. What's the First Amendment? Okay, Karen Reid trial, day 20, starts off with more shenanigans and scandals. Each juror is being brought up individually to be questioned by Auntie Bev. No idea what this is about, but of course this happens in this trial. Rigging the jury is the only way Hank Brennan can avoid an acquittal. Yeah, at this point, yes. Sleuthy, I knew this was coming. This is the chick that does the awesome timelines. Awesome. This was coming when she started the morning several days ago by reprimanding the jury. Bev needs to speak to every juror individually or counsel at sidebar. So this will take a while. If you want, join us to watch old testimony, maybe, from Trooper Proctor. Yeah, thanks. Man, oh man, Hank keeps showing us his... Oh, did he request it, did he? Was it on Hank's bidding that they... Hoss long to rig this jury. Oh, sorry. Spasm. That was nasty. Bastard. I don't know what Andrew Burkhart thinks. I just don't know how to find them on here. I don't know how to work it yet properly. I'm pretty crap. Nope. Oh, someone's in Chinese. No, don't want that one. I wonder what uncivil says.
Neutral way, and we'll give that a shot and see if we can make that work. And every single day it resets. Like any quartz watch will be, that's the
He's looking at watches.
Guys, like Leonard is a fun watch channel. However, we can dance if we want to. Anything like what you'd consider a pilot's watch today, but found out that Shannon wasn't even employed by Aperture. Well, I don't know what's going on, obviously, but you could only speculate. But someone has a concern about the jurors and something, whatever. Holy shit, dude! What the fuck is going on this morning? Okay, good times.
Have you ever seen like his stream? He hasn't got an intro, so he when Miss Shorty was on the other day, his stream starts live, and he's just sitting there all surly looking, and then it obviously clicks into him that it's gone live, and you see him go, "Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day." And it's just like, what? Okay, settle down. Good morning, Christine. Do you know what's going on in the courtroom today? Because we don't. I can't even tell you what's going on in my neighbour's bathroom today. All right, so let's do an update on the Dipshit Awards, shall we? Let's do a where everyone's out. Coffee. All right, so we have Jen McCabe on 4 points, Kerry Roberts on 2, Karen Reid on 2, Gary Feller on 1, Vinnie Politan on 1, Hank Brennan, I'll read him last, Brian Higgins on 3, Bukaki on 4, Shannon Burgess on 4. Now, I probably think that he needs a couple extra, just quietly. And Hank Brennan on 3,972. Don't know how that got up there, but it did. All right. Dipshit Awards, done. So I was trying to work out the other day how far along they are in their case. Because we're getting to the pointy end of it now. But there's still quite a few witnesses they haven't called that I thought they would. Like Lank. Saraf, the first responder, the guy whose dash cam we watched. Flamardi, Nicholas Flamardi. They're one of the first responders. And he was one that diffused, that said that he didn't hear Karen Reid say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. In fact, I think he went against the two, Katie McLaughlin and the other guy that testified. So that's why. So what he's done, basically, he has excluded every witness that he didn't like their testimony of, and anything that was of substantive value, he replaced them. He bought the answer. That's what he thought he was doing with Shannon. He was there to rebut Arca. Without a bachelor's degree. So I know he's got, Welcher, I'm assuming that he'll bring him on. He's too arrogant not to. But his credibility hopefully will be shot from after Shannon's testimony. And then we've got, Tully, Berkowitz. I don't think he'll call Proctor. I think he'll make the defense call Proctor. There was that ER doctor, Dr. Rice, that was the one that treated him when John came into straight into emergency. That one I want to listen to because maybe there's something in his testimony that oh no, there wasn't, because I checked trial one. I'm trying to still work out what those marks are from on his back of his hand. And then we've got Caitlin Albert, because she's the one that said Colin wasn't there when John was there. And then Crosby, he's keeping as his rebuttal witness, which is the dog expert. I don't think so, T. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, depending on what's happening today, I reckon we maybe get to Monday, Tuesday next week, and then it will be the defence's turn. That's my prediction, because they said, what was it, 6 to 8 weeks in total. So we're 4 weeks into the actual trial, but don't forget we had 3 weeks of jury selection, which they count into that. So yeah, I don't think they're that far from wrapping it up, especially seeing as we've had the medical examiner on. They're normally one of the last. Who knows with Hank? Who knows? There was also on Facebook, apparently, this is, I haven't even seen the post. I read it on Twitter, and so take it with a grain of salt. But apparently, Burgess's wife has been posting on Facebook saying that Aperture made him do it, made him falsify his CV, and he needed the money to take his kids on holiday or some shit. What the fuck? This is what I mean. It's trial by social media now. There's so many people putting their 2 cents in. People are actually, you read other people's chats and they just say stupid things like, well, obviously she was so mad at him and jealous about the Aruba incident that she backed over him. What happens beyond a reasonable doubt? Like, fuck. Yes. Often Court TV update you in their chat, so let's keep an eye on it, shall we? Where is their chat? Why have I got all that shit open? Go away. Go away. Yeah, I'll get rid of that. Yeah. Where'd affects the chat? Oh, chat is disabled for this live stream. Right. Okay. Wonder why that is. Let's have a look at law and crime. You can't give an interview after court. I don't know. I went to bed. Let's have a look. Because if she did, who's that? How about I search for it? Might be easier, Jody. So much here. Okay. Karen Reid interview. Day 19. Yep, there we go. You can't see it. Okay.
Afternoon. Hey, good. How are you? Any reaction to the clips, Karen, that are being played?
No.
How about Shannon Burgess? What do you think about his performance? I had to get him on here. So how do you feel?
Incredible or uncredible. I'm not sure what the word is. That John's phone is still moving. He's still walking after a common trigger on my Lexus.
Why did you say that he died at 12:25? Interview. How did you come up with that time yourself? That 12:25 time.
I said we believe. That's what we believe. And I said 12:25, 12:30, and that was based on phone data that we have that everyone can see now.
How much longer is their case going on? You know,
Probably a week.
Don't look at me. I can't talk.
All right.
So the state, they reckon a week.
Tonight, timelines and tech data under scrutiny as a digital forensics expert returns to the stand.
Are Lexus SUVs trigger happy?
I do not know, sir.
Did the prosecution repair the damage done to the witness's credibility after the defense exposed mistakes and misstatements in front of the jury?
Why didn't you finish your degree in 2024?
As most people can probably relate, work, family, and life many times get in the way.
Plus, several state troopers linked to this trial in court for another high-profile murder case. Our legal experts weigh in. Canton Confidential, the Karen Reid murder trial, starts right now.
Second day of scientific testimony, a forensic expert back on the stand just a day after getting grilled by the defense.
We don't really want to watch that, do we? Surely. Ow. Up to the top. Scroll. You all. I reckon the jury, someone from the jury might have spoken to someone. NFI, love NFI. No forthcoming information. Or no fucking idea, depending on which way you want to go. But yeah, it's paranoid everywhere, doesn't it? It's just doesn't matter which channel you go to, which modality. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Now, I did a little skit up this morning. Did you see my posts in my community channel bit? Graphic content warning. A reaming is imminent with a photo of the Shannon Burgess. And I got a really good shot of Alexi's face just as he puts his stuff down on the lectern to start his cross-examination. It's gold. He's got the hugest dimples. All right, how about we look at the actual timeline? Timeline. Because I don't understand why they're even going through all of this shit with the 3-point turn. Why is it a big deal? I don't get it. Like, is it just me? Like, I don't know. Are they saying that she hit him when she was doing the 3-point turn? So she did a 3-point turn with a 60-foot none of it makes sense. None of it. No, I've got no idea. I just because they're saying that John's phone stops. So he unlocks it via Face ID at 12:32. He reads Jen's text, which says, "Pull behind me." Then he takes those 36 steps, and his phone is locked for the final time using the lock button. So he's clicked it off, or someone's clicked it off. 12:32. If you see the detail, like see this blue line here, that's the level of snow at the time. She's amazing. And I noticed that she was actually putting in, as this guy Burgess was testifying, she was adding that in to the timeline as well, saying, this is when he states this happens. And oh, look, she's amazing. And that's just the timeline, right? So this is only one part of it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think there's about 11 sections. So this is the main timeline of events, and it goes right up till today. It tells you Jennifer McCabe's heart rate. Yeah, when the niece rang her because of her Apple Health data. But that's then you've got a separate Apple Health data chart for each day and each person. And then you've got the witness lists for Commonwealth and Defence. This is trial 1, I think. Or maybe it continues. So she's crossed off who has been called. Okay. Yeah, so Paul and Erin didn't get called. The Sullivans, I know that Hank's put in a motion to have their testimony heard. Gretchen Voss, I reckon you'll probably call her. Anthony Flamati, that was one of the first responders. Sergeant Good, Lank. Well, they won't call Trooper Paul. Proctor, Tully, like all the main people. So that's Colleen Crawford. That's his rebuttal witness. That's the dog specialist, I think. Justin Rice. He's got to call him. He has to. So, yeah, they reckon a week before the state's case. So then you've got all the testimony links. Oh, we have noise at court. We have noise. Oh, I heard a sigh.
Please be seated.
Yeah.
All right, so jurors, I still have a couple of questions for you. Were you able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? And we've discussed the other two questions, but I do need to stress for you that it's very, very important that no one discuss this case. Don't let anyone talk to you about the case, no comments about the case. You've seen how hard the lawyers have worked to pull this case together for you, and everybody's given it so much time. So please, let's make sure that we follow that. That means each other. So
Phew.
that, I know we're late getting started. We're going to take an abbreviated lunch today, only 30 minutes, and abbreviated breaks. So no morning break. We're going to start now and go till 1. All right, Mr. Brennan, and we're taking a witness out of order. I apologize. We've got a witness here. Sometimes we take witnesses out of order. Ms. Hanley will be back later for the rest of her testimony, but we've got a witness here that we'll call out of order. Thank you. Mr. Brennan, thanks.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth calls Dr.
Stop
Wolf.
yelling. Dr. Wolf, did he say? Is that Daniel Wolf? He's calling Arca. Really? Is he on the list? No, that's not him.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case now and hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Dr. Wolf.
Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Stop yelling, for
Could you
fuck's sake.
please introduce yourself to the jury, spell your first name and last name for the court reporter?
Sure. My first name is Izak, A-I-Z-I-K. It's phonetic. Last name is Wolf, W-O-L-F, like the real thing.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a brain surgeon.
Is there a special part of medicine that you study?
Well, my main interest in brain surgery is brain tumors and trigeminal neuralgia. But I also specialize in movement disorders. I do pediatrics and adults.
Are you an active working neurosurgeon?
I am
I need to
very
see that of
active
you.
working neurosurgeon. I get up every day at 4:30 in the morning to go to work. 5 days a week. I take call 300 days out of 365 days a year.
Did you work yesterday?
Yes, I did.
What type of work did you do yesterday?
I did 2 brain surgeries yesterday.
Are you working tomorrow?
I have 4 surgeries scheduled for tomorrow, which is why this is a little bit delayed for me.
Miami.
And I have 4 on Friday.
And what type of surgeries do you have tomorrow and Friday?
I have 3 brain tumors, 1 trigeminal neuralgia, and on Friday I have 4 patients with movement disorders.
You're here today as a witness. How much of your practice, how much % of your income is from being a consultant or a witness for a case?
Probably less than 1%. I don't do this for a living.
I want you to take us through some of your education and background. Could you share with us where you went to medical school and where you graduated from?
I went to Yale Medical School. I graduated summa cum laude.
Was that in 1981 that you graduated?
Correct.
After medical school, did you begin internships in medical residency?
I did an internship at Hennepin County Medical Center, which is a trauma center in Minneapolis. I then did 5 years of neurosurgical residency at the University of Minnesota.
And was that in Minnesota?
Correct, in Minneapolis.
Is there something about that hospital that has some specialty?
It was one of the #1 training centers for chairmen in neurosurgery at the time.
Did you, in your residency and in your fellowships, do any work or study in pathology?
During your residency as a neurosurgical resident, you do 6 months in neurology, you do 3 months of neuroradiology, you do 3 months in pathology, which includes autopsies on brains. And then you do rotations through a trauma center as a chief resident, through a VA hospital, and then ultimately at the university hospital for elective cases. We also do 6 months of pediatric neurosurgical residency.
Did you do a fellowship at New York University?
Yeah, at NYU, I did a fellowship before I went to the University of Maryland as a professor in brain transplantation. The interest was in using cells to create dopamine centers in rat brains with the concept of Parkinson's being curable with transplantation.
I'd like you to take us through some of your faculty positions, and so you can share with us some of the progression of your training and experience. And did you begin at the University of Maryland Hospital?
Yes. In 1987, the University of Maryland recruited me to start their epilepsy surgical program and skull-based program. And then part of our responsibilities as assistant professors was to cover shock trauma.
Could you explain for us what shock trauma means and whether the University of Maryland Hospital was a shock trauma hospital?
So the University of Maryland and shock trauma were actually 2 separate entities when I started. A man named Cowley had basically developed the concept of the golden hour. So prior to Dr. Cowley, most trauma was just taken locally. That meant as a community hospital, if a patient had been in a motor vehicle accident, they needed an orthopedic surgeon, they had to call the orthopedic surgeon in, could take 15 minutes, could take 3 hours. The same thing for a vascular surgeon, the same thing for a neurosurgeon. Dr. Cowley came up with the concept that you needed a center that was strictly for trauma, and every attending had to be in the hospital 24/7. So that was the concept of shock trauma back in the 80s. When I got there, we were transitioning from a very small center to a 125-bed hospital that was completely committed to trauma.
In that experience, in the years you worked there, did you have an opportunity to treat a number of people with brain injuries?
We treated well over 100 patients a year, a month, basically, with brain injuries at shock trauma, along with spinal cord injuries.
Did you perform surgeries in different types of brain trauma and brain injuries?
Yes.
After Maryland in 1993, did you move to Miami Neuroscience Center?
Yes. In 1993, I left academics. I went into private practice in Miami, and I started the Miami Neuroscience Center. We were the first private community hospital to have what's called the Gamma Knife. So we were the 13th in the country, but the only one that was non-university based. And Gamma Knife radiosurgery is using radiation to operate on the brain.
Are you presently the director of the Miami Neuroscience Center at Larkin Hospital?
Yes, I am.
Do you conduct a number of surgeries a year there?
Correct. So I spent 19 years at Doctors Hospital. Then we moved to Larkin Hospital 13 years ago, developing the new radiosurgical unit called ZAP, and also another fancy machine called high frequency ultrasound to treat the movement disorders.
You've noted that you have a number of professional memberships. I don't want to go through all of them. I'd like to point out a few. Are you a professional member of the American Association of Neurological Surgeons?
Yes.
Are you a member or fellow American of the College of Surgeons?
Yes.
Lost to witness.
Are you a member of North American Skull-Based Society?
Yes,
And is that brain related?
it is.
Are you a member of the Society for Neuro-Oncology?
Yes.
Are you a member of over or at least 34 different professional memberships?
Yes.
In your career, have you engaged in research?
Yes.
Has that research focused or centered on brain injury?
Yes.
Yes, it has.
Is some of your research as a principal investigator for THAM treatment of brain tissue, acidosis, and severely head injured patients?
Yes.
Did that research and as a principal investigator help you in your diagnosis and treatment of brain injuries?
It actually was in the treatment of severe head injuries, patients who were unconscious, the concept of trying to relieve the increased intracranial pressure that occurs from the injury and to increase blood flow, thereby increasing oxygen to the brain.
Did you also serve as principal investigator for research for the PEG, SOD, and severe head injury?
Yes.
Could you describe that very briefly?
Basically the same, one of the biggest problems in brain injury is the fact that blood flow ceases to exist as the brain swells up. And so one of the things we try to do is preserve the neurons by making sure that they have enough oxygen and blood flow to them. All these are agents that try to assist that.
I won't go through all of your research and principal investigator roles, but I want to ask you about one more. And that is, did you serve as principal investigator relative to the IRB protocol for brain pathology?
Yes.
And what did that do? What was that about?
It was about looking at what happens after a brain injury to blood vessels and tissue as the intracranial pressure increases in the brain.
Well, this will explain the raccoon eyes.
Have you been part of publications of a number of different books?
Yes.
I won't list parts of all 16 books, but can I point out a few?
Sure.
Were you the author of a book chapter regarding head injury, difficult medical management?
Yes.
Were you the author of a book chapter on pediatric neurosurgical emergencies?
Yes.
Were you the author of a book chapter on complications of head injuries in adults?
Yes.
Were you an author of a book chapter, imaging of craniocerebral trauma?
Yes.
Were you an author of a book chapter in emergency room assessment of the head injury patient?
Yes.
Yes.
Were you the author of a book
Yes.
chapter intracranial
Yes.
injuries?
Yes.
I won't list or ask you about the other book chapters that you've been the author of. Have you been involved in journal articles?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you just about a few of the 70 journal articles that you have published.
Your Honor, objection.
So go ahead and ask the question without a comment, please.
Were you an author of a journal article, Intracranial Pressure in Non-Traumatic Ischemia and Hypoxic Cerebral Insults?
Yes.
It's ischemia. Hey?
Were you the author of a
Ischemia.
journal article, Post-Traumatic
And that
Cerebral
means-
Infraction?
That's a stroke.
Yes.
Were you the author of the journal Fractures of the Clivus?
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about that paper?
We used thin cut CT scans to identify fractures of the skull base. Prior to this, prior to CT scans. It was very difficult to actually identify radiologically a skull fracture with plain x-rays. The idea was to see if we could identify them more clearly. And so we classified them and delineate them in the paper and discussed the outcomes that were relative to those type of injuries.
In the last journal article I'll ask you about, were you the author of a journal article regarding acute traumatic midbrain hemorrhage?
Yes.
Were you the presenter in a number of presentations regarding head injury and brain injury?
Yes.
You've listed 93. I'll ask you just about a few. Were you a presenter in fractures of the clivus, clinical and radiographic features?
Yes.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Clivus.
Thank you. Were you the presenter in acute head injury?
Yes.
And a separate presentation, fractures of the clivus, classifications and clinical features?
Yes.
Do you lecture?
Yes.
Yes. He's entertaining, isn't
Do
he?
you have peer-reviewed publications?
Yes. That was one of them.
And are you heavily involved in clinical research?
Right now, my research is more based on radiosurgical techniques and outcomes.
Over your career and your study and your clinical experience, have you treated different types of brain injuries?
Yes.
Are you familiar with a number of different types of brain injuries?
Yes, we still treat them.
Were you asked to review materials relative to this case?
Yes.
And do you recall the materials that you reviewed?
Yes.
Could you share with us some of the materials that you reviewed?
I reviewed the chief medical examiner's assessment of the case. I reviewed pictures that I'm assuming the medical examiner took of the autopsy. And I reviewed the report from the forensic pathologist.
And before I ask you about your review of specific materials and your opinions in this case, is there a benefit to your clinical experience in studying brain injuries as opposed to the experience you had as a fellow simply with pathology?
Well, I think that for the jury to understand is a clinician understands the process from the time the injury occurs till the patient either leaves the hospital or dies. And it's a process. And as a neurosurgeon, I have a tremendous amount of experience with that, if that's what you're asking me.
Yes. And so, doctor, you reviewed a number of items of information in this case. Did you have an opportunity to review photographs of a laceration to Mr. John O'Keefe's head?
Yes, I did.
With the court's permission, I'm going to ask to display Exhibit 160.
Okay.
Dr. Wolf, I'm going to ask you to take a look at this photograph. Have you seen this photograph before?
Yes.
I want you to explain to us what you're seeing here and take us through the process of your observations.
Well, what we're seeing is an approximate 1.5 inch laceration with bridging tissue and contusions and abrasions. To us, that's just a classic blunt trauma injury. There's nothing other than just vanilla about it. This is what happens when soft tissue hits a solid ground. The skin tears apart a bit, but not through and through. As you can see, there's the bridging. You can see all the bruising or contusions and just the tear, a little bit serrated along the edges.
Thank you. If you could take that down. Dr. Wolf, as a result of that wound, did you have a chance to further look at information provided to you about the actual inside the skull of Mr. John O'Keefe?
Yes, it was the pictures that I was reviewing showed a non-depressed skull fracture extending linearly through the clivus and into the frontal fossa of Mr. O'Keefe over the orbital roofs.
Yes.
He had fractures along
All
the
the way.
temporal fossa as well. So it was a classic linear basilar skull fracture.
Is basal skull fracture a
It's
characterization?
basically the base of your skull is what it encompasses. So the opening at the very bottom is what we call the foramen magnum. That connects your brainstem to your spinal cord. And then as your brainstem goes up, it goes into the different skull areas that, talk about what we call the cerebral cortexes, your occipital lobe, your temporal lobes over here, and then your frontal lobes.
So can you walk us through what happens when someone incurs this type of injury to the back of the head, how it happens, and what are the next steps for a person?
So what happens is, you fall backwards, and the linear acceleration starts to take you back down with gravity. The skull hits the ground. It gets, in layman's terms, smashed a little bit. And then the brain moves forward as a response to that. And it moves forward because you have cerebral spinal fluid and because you have the deceleration, acceleration again. As it does, your skull, if you were to look inside your skull, it's like mini mountains along your temporal bones and your frontal bones. So the brain is being thrust forward at a fairly good speed, and it's getting bruised. You can think of it as if you took a hammer to your thumb. It's really turning black and blue. Those are the contusions. And so the temporal poles and the frontal poles are getting contusions because of that. At the same time, you have a space called the subarachnoid space. And I'm sure they're going to hear about the subarachnoid hemorrhage. And
well, that's a very, very,
that
very
space
rapid.
is it's very clear, thin membrane that covers all of your brain and all of your spinal cord. And normally, you really don't see it unless you open up the brain and you're operating. But when you either have a traumatic event like this, where little vessels are pulling apart underneath that membrane, or, for example, the classic, when you have an aneurysm burst, the space that the aneurysm bleeds to is the subarachnoid space.
All right, so an aneurysm
The other
is like
thing
a
that
weakness.
occurs in trauma like this is you can get a subdural. So the dura is the membrane that
Subdural
covers the whole
hematoma.
brain and also right down.
So, what did you just say? Oh, Lord.
Your
Jody?
spinal canal.
Go back.
Trauma like have an aneurysm burst.
Okay, so an aneurysm is basically a weakening in a vessel. So you often hear them as a AAA or an abdominal aortic aneurysm. So the vessel balloons out almost. So it often has a plaque in the middle of it, and it constantly just swells out, and the center of it gets narrowed. And so that weakens, like it's like a balloon. The more you blow it up, the thinner the walls get. And if that aneurysm bursts, particularly if it's in your the aortic one, I think you've got 2 minutes. That's it, because that's the major vessel, and you bleed out. But yeah, that's what an aneurysm is. It's a weakness because it's stretched from calcification and plaque deposits inside.
The space that the aneurysm bleeds to is the subarachnoid space. The other thing that occurs in trauma like this is you can get a subdural. So the dura is the membrane that covers the whole brain.
Between the brain
and also
and
right
the...
down your spinal canal. And it's a very thin membrane that looks like very thin leather. And in that space between the brain and the dura can be a lot of veins that go towards a central vein called the sagittal sinus. And if those tear, you have a venous hemorrhage from, which is not arterial, so it's not quick.
That's life-threatening.
But
Yep.
that can develop into a subdural as well.
Which puts pressure
If
everywhere.
you tear a portion of your brain as well, and you get a little arterial bleeds, that could create a much faster subdural hematoma. And so when you look at the pathology, the autopsy of his brain, you're looking at a subarachnoid hemorrhage, you're looking at a subdural hemorrhage, neither one of them which was huge or would have required surgery, as well as the contusions that I described in his frontal poles, in his temporal poles, and then the original bang, which was in the occipital area. These are all findings that you would see on a CT scan and an MRI scan without requiring an autopsy if he had made it to the emergency room.
I want to take a step back at the beginning. You said that this laceration on the back of his head was caused by a fall. Could this be caused by a fall landing on hard ground?
Yes, I mean, like I said, it's a classic blunt trauma laceration.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether this injury, the laceration and the basal fracture, was caused by Mr. O'Keefe falling backwards on the ground?
My opinion is that that's what caused his whole injury.
And how did you come to that?
The pattern of the laceration, do you have an opinion whether that is consistent with hitting the cold, hard ground?
Objection, Your Honor. Can we have sidebar on that, please?
There is no, you can't go from a leap.
So no sidebar.
Your Honor.
Do you have an opinion, doctor, about whether that laceration on the back of his head was caused by a particular movement?
He's missing the middle bit. What?
Well, the only way he could get this kind of an injury was to fall backwards, hit the back of his head.
The only
and then
way.
The resulting, energy forces.
The only way is a fall.
Into his brain, into his
Really?
base of his skull.
Would that type of
what the fuck
laceration require Mr. O'Keefe to have hit a line type or a ridge type object?
A ridge type of object?
Yes.
No, I mean, like I said, the tearing of the skin in that fashion, you could look it up, would be just a classic blunt trauma injury.
Is there anything about that injury that would suggest to you it had to have been something sharp or
No, it was
ridge-like?
blunt
to cause?
force, you dickhead.
Objection, Your Honor. We again request kindly a sidebar on this.
All right, we'll come to that.
Thank you.
He's gone from, okay, there was a massive bleed, and I know he fell backwards. How the fuck did you get from there to there? You've got to explain how you came to that. I don't trust this. My AI is listening to me. Stop listening. It was typing up everything that I was saying about the aneurysm. You can't just go from. It's like, okay, you scratched your head and then because of that you're dead. Like you can't say, well, what caused the itch and how did that? You can't skip the middle bits. That's the details. I don't trust him. Something in my gut's telling me no. I pulled up a couple of pictures whilst they're on sidebar just to try and explain. So when he got hit at the back of his skull, the force was that great. Oh, hello. You right? On my keyboard. Get up. Hey, fuck yeah. Freaking hell. Cats. Get up. Oh. Clumsy. Fuck. No, look what you've done. Yes. Yes, you're here. I know. I love you. Yeah, it was that great that it fractured all the way right to the front of his occipital bone, to his eye. All the way. It radiated completely. Right. And even a 6'4" man cannot generate enough force in a fall backwards to cause that injury. Like, unless he fell back onto, a barbell or a sharp.
So as we were discussing, Dr. Wolf, you said this is a classic fall backwards. Is there anything about the pattern of that laceration that would suggest that there was a ridge or a line type edge that caused that wound?
Not necessarily.
And have you seen, in your experience, similar types of lacerations and breaks caused by falling on hard ground?
Yes, you can see that both in the occipital region. You can see it if patients fall on the, forehead. The skin tears, they're still bridging, and then they get bruises.
Some of your work was in Minnesota?
Correct.
Was it a colder part of Minnesota?
Very cold part of Minnesota. It's Minneapolis.
I'm sorry. Did you often see these type of injuries there?
Yes. I mean, we took care of a trauma center, Hennepin County. Very frequently, patients that are drunk fall down on ice sidewalks and could develop,
concrete,
lacerations in their head.
Consider it, yes.
Epidurals, which are blood clots above the dura because they fracture a bone in the temporal area and they can get a bleed from a fractured artery. And it happens when people are shoveling snow and have a heart attack and fall backwards. So there are various
but it can be
ways
caused
that people
by other
fall,
things, not just
resulting
the
in head injuries and lacerations to their forehead or to different areas of their head.
Can somebody suffer this type of injury simply by falling backwards?
Absolutely.
You had taken us through the process of falling backwards and then talked about what happens to the brain. Can I ask you a couple detailed questions about that?
Sure.
When you explained that the brain upon impact then shifts forward and hits the front of the skull, is there a medical term for that process?
Well, the medical term is a coup contre coup.
Contre coup, yep.
So the coup is when you first hit. In this case, it was the back of the head.
Contra, hitting the front.
As summarized by the laceration in the back of the head and the contusions that the pathologist and the ME found in the back of the brain. And then the brain shifts forward, and as it's traveling at a certain velocity, because it's thrust forward on the floor of the base of the skull, it's getting bumped. And it's getting, again, you can think of it as a hammer hitting a thumb. It's getting black and blue in the areas that are sharpest.
Are there symptoms that result of the process coup contre coup?
This is
ecchymosis.
clinically, it varies. I mean, you can go from anywhere from a simple concussion where you sort of are unaware of what happened, but you're still awake, you're confused, all the way to, ultimately being in a coma.
Can this type of injury, the coup contre coup, and what you see in the review of your files, could this type of injury happen from an attack by a weapon, like a bat or a hammer?
Well, he did not have a depressed skull fracture. So any focal hit like that would more likely than not have caused a depressed skull fracture. Blunt trauma, the way he had, the assumption, would cause the coup contre coup without a depressed skull fracture.
When the coup contre coup process happens with the skull fracture, does anything happen to the front of the skull?
Well, you're asking me, does the rest, I mean, the forces, depending on how hard they are, can generate fracture lines all the way to the anterior fossa. So you can have fractures along the lateral temporal area. You can have fractures along the orbital roof. The orbital roof is very thin. And so those forces can go all the way to that area.
Did you see any sign of orbital fractures in Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, he had both the ME and the pictures taken, and the neuropathologist mentioned fractures of the orbital roof.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how those fractures occurred?
They radiated
From the trauma.
Yep.
Could you just explain a little bit how that would happen?
Well, as he fell backwards and he struck his head, it was clearly at a very high speed generated by the gravity. The bone, depending on the quality of his bone, the density, then generated forces. There's a certain amount of lateral give, and then you get a linear force going forward. It drives all the way up the clivus and forward into the anterior fossa where his orbital roofs lay. And this is why people like this get what they call raccoon's eyes.
Do you have
What
an
have I been
opinion
telling
whether
you?
the brain itself could have caused the orbital fractures?
No. The brain is a soft substance. You could literally put your finger through the brain. We often operate on people fully awake. The brain couldn't possibly cause a fracture. The fracture was caused by the forces generated through that clivus, that middle bone in the middle of his base of the skull.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether or not the brain in any way could have caused these orbital fractures?
The brain,
The
no.
answer is absolutely not.
All right, just have a look at this. That's the raccoon eyes that you're looking. This is what John had. Why the puffiness? It came out on his eyelids instead of underneath his eyes, where gravity would normally, if you had a punch to the face. That's why I said it's not consistent with being punched in the face, because that's completely different to what you would get. You've seen black eyes that they're all under here, not on a swollen top eyelid. So you can see at the back, occipital bone is where the trauma came in, to the right there, all the way through to the front, where is the top of his eye, the occipital roof. So that radiated all the way. Now, the only one thing that I actually agree with here in what he said was there was no depressed fracture at the impact site. So that tells me that it was a flatter surface that hit the back of his skull. So what I'm saying is, if like you hit it with a hammer, if you're nailing into a bit of wood and you miss, you leave a dent. That's a depression. All right. So it's not something that hit the back of his head that was a like a barbell, because you would have the depression of the whole impact of that, where that hit. So it's a linear abrasion of about, I think he said 2.5 centimeters, or that's what Irene Scotty-Bello said. But there was no depression at the impact site. So it was a flatter surface. So think of, something maybe wider that hits, produces the same amount of force, but doesn't leave a depression because there's more surface area that has absorbed that impact, if that makes sense. So I do agree with that. I don't, I still don't think that the ground is hard enough to have caused that, but well, I'll keep listening. I'll put him back, sorry. If it was a hard
In your
surface like
study
concrete or
of
something,
the records
maybe?
and photographs, and in your experience treating these types of injuries, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether or not a person would remain conscious or would be immediately unconscious after the impact of the ground?
Well, it's impossible to know whether he became immediately unconscious, but his injuries were very substantial. And it's more probable than not that at some point he quickly became unconscious and was unable to do functional activities.
What does functional activities mean?
The ability to, get himself
up and walk.
Up and about would be one of the functional activities. The ability to call for help would be a very significant cortical function. And that's why I was talking about, that there's a variation on the theme from a simple concussion to a severe concussion like this.
If a person does not have functional abilities because they are rendered unconscious, could it still move?
Yes, this is the interesting thing about our brain. So the cortex, which is the top portion of your brain, can get separated from your brainstem functionally. And what happens then is that your body is not acting autonomically, meaning vegetative. So why does that happen? We think it's because as we were cavemen, and if a caveman became unconscious, as an animal came up to eat it, the animal would touch it. Well, you have these automatic movements. One of them is called decorticating, which is where you draw your arms like this and you throw your feet out. And then a worse neurological situation.
Yeah, that John actually had that as well. I remember that being said right when the very first autopsy at the first trial, because I remember saying that with that injury, his hands would have curled up as such. But they had been moved. I'm sure that's what they said. I will find it because they weren't. It's part of that parcel, like you instantly, that your hands curl up into that position from just as a neurological response to that trauma. But his hands had been manipulated, so they weren't in that position completely.
When you decerebrate, now you push your arms out along with your legs, and that would scare off an animal. So we think that
turn my
over
head
time,
up
genetically, this is what happened to our brains in order to create these. But those kind of movements are not thought processes. In other words, your brain is not telling you, oh, you have pain, go ahead and decorticate or decerebrate. It's an automatic movement in response to pain.
I want you to take us back now to after the fall. Would Mr. O'Keefe, in your study and opinion, have died immediately?
No.
Can you share? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'll tell you. There is very few things that you head injury where you would die, quote, immediately. So if I took a knife and stabbed you in the back of your neck right below your skull and I drove it through your brainstem, you would probably die immediately. If I shot you below your ear and went through and through below your ear and shot through your brainstem, you would die immediately. But traumatic head injuries, you would not die immediately. It's a process. And it's a process of a combination of things. Brain swelling, which takes a while to develop. Decreased blood flow to your brain because you're getting swelling. and ultimately death of the brainstem that controls your heart and your breathing. And so this is why there is a whole big issue about brain death. You know, when is someone brain dead? Because it's not instant and it can take a long time to be conceived. In these injuries that are very severe that we took care of, there was a high mortality rate. In the linear skull fractures, it was about 67%. But it took time for them to die. It could take days to weeks to months. And also, these people got to shock trauma. So it was a while, whether it was hours, before they were even starting to be taken care of. And yet they weren't dead yet. That's why I don't think it was immediate.
Was there any other observations you made about Mr. O'Keefe or his body that support your opinion that he didn't die immediately?
Well, the medical examiner took pictures of his periorbital area and diagnosed raccoon's eyes. So raccoon's eyes occur because there's leakage through the orbital fractures into the periorbital space. Normally, it takes about 24 to 48 hours to develop. It has been noted as early as 1 to 3 hours, which would make it not immediate.
Could we please have Exhibit 14? Dr. Wolf, could you share with us what you see here in this picture?
So right here, you can see the black and blue that sort of configures, if he had his eyes open, like what we describe as raccoon's eyes, right? And that's not caused by direct trauma to his eyelids. It's caused by what I described as the basilar skull fracture, which went to the anterior fossa, which is right over the orbit here, inside with leakage of blood products into that periorbital area.
You mentioned that starts or takes at least 1 to 3 hours to begin?
Minimally, yes.
You take that down, please. If Mr. O'Keefe had been brought to a trauma center or emergency room, what would the process be in your experience?
Well, he would have been intubated if he wasn't intubated in the field. One of the first things you need to do in a head injury is control the airway. Why? 2 reasons. One, you want to have enough oxygen going to the brain to feed it. And 2, you want to keep your carbon dioxide down because that causes increased intracranial pressure if it elevates. So you want to constrict the blood vessels a little bit. Then he would have had a CT scan immediately in order to assess whether he has a surgical head injury, meaning he needs to go to the operating room to evacuate something or not.
He would have had to
During
have
that
drains put in at
process,
least.
he's obviously going to be getting medication to decrease the brain swelling. And from there, you make decisions based on his neurological function and what you're, capable of doing to, spare the brain from the rest of the injuries that will result. One of the things that occurs with contusions is a great medical term is they can blossom, which means they can get bigger. And if they get bigger, they might require surgical intervention to decrease the pressure as well as the volume of the blood that's destroying brain. And so you do serial CT scans in these patients over time, anywhere from every 6 to 12 hours to on a daily basis, depending on what the case by case, production of blossoming is occurring.
You mentioned that about 2/3 of your patients who suffer this injury pass.
Correct. What we saw is that in the patients that suffered linear clavicle fractures. 2/3 of them ultimately went on to die, and 1/3 lived.
Is there commonality on how they pass?
One of the common reasons they passed is if they trapped a major vessel in one of the fractures, they would get a significant brainstem infarct, meaning a stroke, meaning lack of blood flow to a very significant portion of the brainstem. And so that was one of the causes of death that ultimately we understood. And then the others died from the increased intracranial pressure that drove the brainstem down through the foramen magnum.
Did you review any materials that talked about or identified Mr. O'Keefe's body temperature when he was treated?
As I recall, his core temperature was 80 when he was found.
Is that significant in the process and development of his injury from the moment he fell and hit his head until his ultimate
Would have
passing?
slowed the swelling
Well,
because it's cold, but
hypothermia, he had, I mean, if you define hypothermia, it starts at 95 degrees. Your core temperature is usually about 98, 98.6. 95 is very mild hypothermia. When you get to 82 degrees, you're in severe hypothermia. What happens when you're hypothermic, and I'm a neurosurgeon, but I can tell you that you get into multiple organ failure. Your heart starts to have problems. It can have arrhythmias. You're not breathing. And ultimately, at hypothermia, you also become unconscious and go into a coma-like state. Below 80 degrees, you're probably going to die. So all I can tell you, it wasn't helpful that he had a significant head injury and that he was then found hypothermic.
Is it uncommon in your experience for people that suffer this injury to pass within 5 hours?
Well, none of the patients we treated died within 5 hours, but it also didn't mean that we didn't realize that they were going to be in a potentially vegetative state. When someone's hypothermic, you have to warm them up in order to establish a clinical status, meaning you can't declare someone dead with a temperature of 80. You have to warm them up slowly, appropriately, and then reevaluate where they are clinically.
I've asked you questions about whether you had an opinion about Mr. O'Keefe.
no, you're not having my dinner.
And when he died. I want to ask it in the form of a formal opinion. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether Mr. O'Keefe died immediately or within 15 minutes?
No, I don't think he died immediately. Neither the hypothermia
He would have vomited.
nor this kind of head injury
And had a seizure
would
problem.
kill you immediately in any clinical experience I have.
Dr. Wolf, thank you.
All right.
Let me have a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Thank you.
What? You've had your dinner. This is my dinner. Yeah. Please do we eat? I'm being watched. Oh. Hello. Hello, Pansy. You know, see his ears. He's watching me eat my dinner. You won't like it. It's got pepper in it. Yeah. Stop watching me. You act like you're starving. You ate half an hour ago.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Morning, doctor. I don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sir, can you just describe, you started to do it a little bit on direct, a typical day for you?
I wake up at 4:15 in the morning. I go to my center. I set up patients with frames for their either radiosurgical procedures or stereotactic craniotomies. I go home. I make cappuccino for my wife at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I get back to work at 6:30 and move on. I have patients that I'm operating on, and I have patients that I'm seeing through the day.
What type of patients and what type of work? Just in a typical day. What are you doing? What type of patients and what do you do?
It varies. I mean, I see patients with brain tumors. I see patients with hydrocephalus, which is water in their brain. I see pediatric brain tumors. I see subacute and chronic subdural hematomas, post-traumatic. I see patients with strokes that are being misdiagnosed. I see patients with cancer, metastatic disease. I used to see patients with cervical problems. I stopped doing that 2 years ago. I mean, I don't know what else you want me to tell you.
No, that's great. And is that typical day, typical of the type of days you've had for the past month, past few years? Is it generally, without specifics, is it generally?
Correct.
So none of your typical days, none of the past typical months have involved forensic pathology, have they? You haven't acted as a forensic pathologist in...
I am, if you could have asked that question, very straightforward. I am not a forensic pathologist. I'm a brain surgeon.
Right. And you don't perform autopsies, correct, sir? You're a brain surgeon.
Correct. In other words, I see more brains than the forensic pathologist.
Right. And is it correct to say that the brains that you see are of living people?
Correct.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is to go to a different part of the head than was discussed, but sticking with the decedent.
Excuse me, I didn't hear the last word.
I'm sorry, the topic is going to be Mr. O'Keefe, the decedent in this matter, sir. You testified about raccoon eyes. The medical term for that, sir, is ecchymosis, right?
Correct.
And ecchymosis, raccoon eyes, does not cause a laceration to form on an eyelid, does it?
No.
Are you aware that Mr. O'Keefe had a laceration to the outside area of his right upper eyelid?
I am aware that the ME described that. Yes, sir.
Now, could, Your Honor, I'm going to, with Your Honor's permission, ask to publish what is already in evidence in a moment.
Okay.
Mr. Wolf,
What exhibit number, Mr. Alessi?
we're going to, 165, Your Honor.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Wolf, have you seen this photo depiction before today?
I believe I have.
Yeah. Good boy.
Is it correct that that injury on the upper right eyelid is caused by the application of force directly to that area of the front of the head, again, namely the upper eyelid?
That's possible, yes.
Is it more than possible? Is it probable that that injury was caused by the application of force directly to that area of the front of his head?
Well, an easy answer to that would be is that that's not part of the periorbital ecchymosis.
Thank you, sir. That was exactly going to be my next question. This injury is unrelated to any of what you've been describing, the fall backwards, the force transfer inside the skull, the, as you described it, the dura, the cerebral spinal fluid, all of that dynamic that you so ably described on your direct examination. This injury has nothing to do with that, correct?
Correct.
Ooh, dirty. I reckon we might have some pushback between this doctor and Alessi, just quietly.
Thank you for answering my questions, Dr. Wolf. A pleasure again. No more questions at this time, Your Honor.
Any brief follow-up on that?
No, thank you.
All right, Dr. Wolf, you're all set. So you can get out of here.
Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Brennan?
May we have a moment to inquire of our next witness?
Sure. And while I see counsel outside our jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch.
That's got me thinking. Don't know why they didn't delve into that anymore. I suppose there's no real need because they already knew that the eyes were caused from the blunt force trauma from the back. So I only need to establish that there was a forward force that caused the injury to the eyebrow itself.
So, jurors, you may realize that that went quicker than we thought. So we are ahead of schedule. So why don't we take that morning break that we can take? So we'll take a 15 or 20 minute break.
All rise for the court, please.
All right, we're up to what was in the I've got photos of the downstairs of the basement. It's set up as a weight room. Set up as a weight room. The bloody knuckles. Yes. Who falls over and lands on their knuckles? Like, come on. Rubbish. But his injuries aren't consistency with a beat neither. Now, if you were hit by Brian, Albert, or Higgins, then you would expect a massive. They're trained. Well, Albert was trained in boxing, so he would have had a split eyebrow at least, like a big one. Maybe if he was hit by Colin, because he's a little weedy little fuck, maybe that's what caused that little tear on his eyebrow, and he stumbled backwards and hit something. I don't know, but the only reason those women would go out on such a limb is to protect a child. I can't see them doing that for Higgins or Albert. I can't. Why would Jen and Nicole and everyone else go out on such a limb for those two? And yes, Brian Albert, massive. Please don't tell me he doesn't have throw some weight around that town. I'm sorry. He knew. He knew. And Proctor was supposed to go off his shift in 15 minutes. Why would you pick up and the fact that they've driven to New York or wherever it was to go to another funeral a man in blue, but he won't come out of his own house? No. I spent 6 months looking for the reason why, and it's in Massachusetts. If you look it up, it's Massachusetts Declaration and Rights, I think. But it's Article 14. Have a read. It's really interesting. It's to do with property owners and criminal activity on their property. And play, Jodie.
Keep your voice. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
All right, so we've got Miss Hanley back.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Mr. Lally. Lally. So we go back to, should we take these books?
And ma'am, if you could just please introduce yourself to the jury again.
Christine
spelling your last
Hanley.
name for the record.
Forensic
Sure.
scientist.
I'm Christina Hanley. Hanley is spelled Hanley.
And Ms. Hanley, given the break, if I could just ask you a few questions just to reorient as far as the items that we were speaking about
Arson.
yesterday in your
Place
testimony.
arson and explosive unit.
First, starting with the
Yeah.
items of glass that you, analyzing this case,
Yeah,
first of those items
I agree.
Item 3-2, correct?
That's correct.
And if you could, please describe for the jury, or please provide the jury with the description for that item that you received.
Sure. So item 3-2 was a clear
For
glass
sure.
cup with broken irregular edges. And there was some dirt debris material that was noted on the exterior and interior surfaces.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes. Did you show
And two, the other thing that annoys me, if I rang my brother to say, come and pick me up from a party at 12:30 at night, and then he got there and I said, nah, I'm going to stay. Oh, my God. Mm-mm. No way. There would have been a fucking hell to pay. So, why would she go back in? She wasn't allowed to leave. She had to get her story straight. And the other thing I don't know if you watched on Monday, the back of his hands, I've always said that they were from trying to gain IV access because of the 2 puncture wounds on the back of his hand. Now, everyone's saying they were defensive wounds, but when you punch someone, you use the flat surface here, right? Not the top here. Yeah, he could have gone like that to swipe, but they're 2 clear puncture wounds, like a snake bite with bruising. Okay, so it occurred before death. Now, I always thought it was IV access with the first responders trying to get in. If you've been in the snow and your body temperature is 80 degrees, your peripheries, your arms and your legs, all those veins have collapsed because your body retains the blood circulation to the central organs, right? That's the first thing it does. But he was also in asystole, so he had no heartbeat. So there was no perfusion, no blood circulation to the furthest part of an extremity of his upper body. If they were going to do a peripheral line, the first place they would go would be inside the elbow, because that's the bigger vein. But they had the 2 intraosseous, like the ones into the bone, into his legs. They wouldn't be putting IV access in like that. Like, you'd be a dickhead if you did. So I thought to myself, well, they've tried to resuscitate him before they called an ambulance, like. But then I thought, no, there'd have to be someone that had some medical. Fucking, there was a nurse there, Sarah Levinson. Albert, first responder. He could have had an emergency kit that had, an IV access kit and a bag of fucking normal saline. Who knows? It's all blowing my mind now. There is, because those wounds, those puncture wounds, if it was from trying to get IV access, it was done before his heart stopped beating because it bruised. See, my nursing, I have a bachelor's degree in nursing. I didn't wait 17 years for it.
Showing you a photograph, Ms. Hanley, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
So
yeah,
this is a photograph that I took.
You tell me.
It's item
you tell me.
3-2, but it's also, I would have to double check on my notes, but I believe it has item 7-12, one of the pieces that I'm holding, that's showing a physical match between those two items.
You're on a call about the seat to introduce in a minute the next exhibit.
195.
Didn't they show that there was no, the glasses weren't even related to what was on the bumper?
Gentlemen, if I could have photograph 9490. Ms. Hanley, what's up on the screen? Is that the photograph that I just presented to you?
Yes, it is.
And if you could, please describe for the jury what we're looking at here.
So that is a photograph that I took upon examination. It is the clear glass cup item 3-2. And I'm holding another piece, which again, I believe it's one of the pieces from item 7-12. I would need to confirm in my file, but I'm showing that one of the pieces physically fits with item 3-2.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes, they do. He just bought himself the answers. That's all he did. He took the ones that he didn't like or didn't agree with his narrative and paid someone that would give him the answer he wanted. And that's where he fucked up with Burgess. Because Arca annihilate him. They clear his case, gone. They cover everything. Why? That is physically impossible, biomechanically impossible, and not enough force can be generated to cause the falling backwards. They annihilate it completely. They cover everything. That's why he's so keen on getting rid of them, because they only need that testimony and he's screwed. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yes. And he has tried he couldn't attack their credibility because they are highly trained, highly experienced. He couldn't attack their bias because they were employed by a third party. So he tried to insinuate that there was some underlying bullshit with them to try and get them out. Yeah. That's why he had such a big tanty. And you watch when he does that voir dire with Daniel and he's asking him about communications with the defense. He actually looks at Bev and shakes his head. In other words, I'm not getting the right answers. And she sits back and sighs and went, all right, well, I'm going to have to let them in. I did a clip of it somewhere. I'll see if I can find it. But yeah.
Let's look up when you're finished.
He literally looks at her after
Yes,
Daniel gives him the answer. Shakes his head.
These are photographs that I took of item 7-12.
Where is it?
Your Honor, come up, seek to introduce in a minute the next exhibit A and B.
Is there any objection?
Objection.
Thank you.
I have spent way too much time on this case. Way.
Ms. Hanley, if you could, just remind the jury as far as the physical description that you received in regard to item 7-12.
Sure. So item 7-12 consisted of some clear plastic pieces as well as 9 pieces of glass with broken irregular edges.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have first photograph 9476. And if you can enlarge that just a bit, Ms. Gilman. And Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at in this photograph?
So this is the photo that I took of item 7-12 as I received it. So there's the several pieces of clear glass with broken irregular edges.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9477. If you could enlarge that just a bit. And again, Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at in this photograph?
Those are the same pieces of glass as in the previous photo, just a little bit more up close.
Yes, he did.
Of the clear glass that
right at the very end of it.
Recovered and is item
find
7-12.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down.
Did you see my new song I wrote?
Ms. Hanley, as far as a comparative analysis between items in 3-2, the glass cup, and 7-12 regarding the glass pieces, what, if any, conclusions did you make in reference to your comparison between those two items?
Sure. So upon comparing those items, I did note that 6 of the 9 pieces of clear apparent glass had a physical match to item 3-2, the clear glass cup.
If you could just remind the jury, as far as a physical match, what does that mean?
So a physical match is basically if an item breaks and those items have broken irregular edges, if those pieces come back together like a jigsaw fit, then it's a physical match and they were at one time together as one larger unit.
Now, as far as each of those items within 7-12 had a letter associated with them, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall which of the 6 were a physical match for item 3-2, the glass?
I would just need to refer to my notes for the exact letters.
Sure, you can take your report.
I saved it.
The 6 pieces of glass from item 7-12 that physically fit to item 3-2 were A, B, C, D, F, and K.
It might be on my channel, actually.
May I approach, Your Honor?
I might have put it up as a short.
Well, let me ask you this first. I'm sorry. So, Ms. Hanley, during the course of this physical match analysis that you're conducting, are you memorializing that process with photographs as well?
Yes, I am.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm presenting you with 4 photographs. If you could review those and look up when you finish. And do you recognize those, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Those are photographs that I took upon my examination of items 7-12 and item 3-2.
Now, come on, introduce and admit as the next exhibits, A through D. No objection.
Thank you.
That one?
Exhibits 197A through D.
Yes, it is this one. All right, hang on. Let me stop. Stop.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9502, please.
I've lost my whole.
And Ms. Hanley, what's up on the screen? Can you please describe?
Okay. What's this? Oh, hang on. Volume helps, Jody. How do I stop? Stop. Oops. Fuck. All right. Hang on. Ugh. Fucking hell.
That is the attachment to the
Now
email.
watch Hank's, and she's paying heaps of attention. Watch what Hank does.
I never discussed this with him. This is something that I sent to him, that I did on my own, and that I sent to him. But he never asked this of me, and we never discussed it.
So you sent him what you thought would be the best questions and answers that he asked you when you testified.
So this is something I routinely do when I work with attorneys.
No,
Okay, I
he
prepare.
shook his head. She put her glasses back on and sat back. In other words, I can't get it out of him. So I've got the transcripts. Darling, I have transcribed every single day of testimony from the day 1 of trial 1, and I've uploaded them all onto a database, a specific trial analysis database. And I've been comparing witness statements from trial 1 to 2. You can compare. You can say to it, by asking these questions, what strategy is he looking for, or what can you determine is his end game? I have all of it. All of it. It's on a database. And I can't get anyone to ask any questions. I've got it all. I've spent hours and hours and weeks. I've got everything up to date. I can tell you, I can type it in a second and ask you exactly what happened where up to now. Like if it's someone that's testified, I can compare everything they've said. That's how I picked up the Irene Scortabello. There was differences in her, in the notes that she'd taken during the autopsy. Hank had redacted all of the injuries. Why? Oh, I don't know what that is. Yeah, I think maybe Hank's gone, I reckon so-and-so said something, because she gave them a dirty look the other day. I don't know what that was about, but it's a matter of identifying the, who's in Karen's favour and who's not, and just finding a reason to get rid of them. That's all it is. And now I've lost my thing. Again, I hate it when there's too many tabs open. I need another screen. I do. 2 monitors and an iPad is not enough. When the trial's over, you can get them, yeah. And you know the other thing? Speaking of sidebars, I must give tiring, because he's got all of his transcripts from the sidebars. I would love to put them into this database and go through it. Because you can say, why would the prosecution be asking that question? What are they looking for? And, it's trial-based. It's designed to analyze trial-based transcripts and stuff. So, yeah. Steve and I we're going to do like a daily update every day of the trial to go over these transcripts. But he's had some family issues, unfortunately, with his wife's mum and stuff, and all sorts of, it always hits the fan. So we're hoping to start picking that up this week. Steve from Justice is a Process, we have a podcast together. We normally do that every second Saturday, but I had to stop it when I went into hospital at the start of April, and we haven't got back into the swing of it because then shit hit the fan at his end. It's been one of those couple of months. All right, let's go back. I found it again, and we get to listen to Lally. You've not from Justice is a Process. I'll show you a picture of him.
For the jury, what we're looking at in this photograph.
So this is one of the photos that I took of one of the breaks that physically fit together between item 3-2 and item 7-12.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9514. And again, Ms. Hanley, can you please describe for the jury what we're looking at in this photograph?
There you go. So this is a photo that I took when I was doing my comparison.
All right, so this is our podcast. I designed it all. Music, wrote the songs, graphics, name, logo. And there you go. There's Ian Runkle. It's just I love this song. All right, I'll post it there. Hey, that. Sorry. Oh, this song. I will post a link. So yeah, we were doing that every fortnight, and shite hit the fan. Copy video URL. There you go. That will take you to one of the videos in the playlist. And Steve is my co-host. Oops.
Of item 3-2 and several pieces from item 7-12.
Now, as far as the individual pieces had sort of little white stickers.
Steve is not as present on his streams. He tends to keep them fairly, like he's not commentating a great deal. He'll interject now and then, but his knowledge of the law, like his dad was a very well-known criminal defense attorney in West Virginia, and he's lived it and breathed it without actually getting a certificate for it. His knowledge of the law is phenomenal. And because I've got the scientific background and the medical background, he's got the legal, it actually works really well. So I actually emailed Lisa today to see if she would be interested in, I know she's absolutely flat knacker because she works full time and she does work so hard doing all of her streams and stuff. But yeah, I've asked her to see if she'd be interested in doing a collab with me. I'm new to your neck of the woods. I only found you. Yeah, I did a thing with. Well, I've only been here 12 months, just gone. So I'm a newbie, and I had done a collab, or with someone else. I'd been asked to do a thing with Aussie Insider on the Karen Reid last trial, and then I met Lisa from Aussie Insider. Because Lisa's only like an hour from me. She only lives, an hour from my house, literally. So, and she's got a very similar personality to me, and I reckon it would be a scream. If we did a funny Aussie. Because I think everyone's overwhelmed at the moment with Karen Reid. We're all bogged down and we need something to lift the mood. That's just me. I know I am.
Stickers or labels affixed to them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that something that you did, or is that something that when the items were provided to you was already done?
Close your eyes without seeing Karen Reid.
Item 7-12, I received those pieces with the labels already on them.
And again, those items, especially 7-12, had been with Mix Valier in your unit prior to coming to your table or your station, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9518. Again, Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at here?
Wow.
So this is another photograph that I took of the physical match. It's just another view of the items together of item 3-2 and several pieces from item 7-12.
And lastly, for this batch, Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9520. And again, Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at here?
So this
She's
is
way too hot to be on a road crew.
Another picture that I took of the items just slightly rotated.
She rocks it.
Item 3-2 with physical fit to several items or several pieces from item 7-12.
Ms. Hanley, is there a laser pointer on the desk in front of you?
Yes.
If you could, preferably using this screen just so it's visible for the jury, could you delineate where you see in this photograph item 3-2 and where you see the items associated with item 7-12?
So this right here is item 3-2, and these pieces up here are several pieces from 7-12.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, the other two items that you analyzed or examined in this part of your physical match analysis were items 3-3 and 7-14, correct?
That's correct.
And turning your attention specifically to item 3-3, if you could just remind the jury as far as the physical description of that item that was provided to you.
Sure. So item 3-3 was 5 pieces of clear glass with broken irregular edges that were recovered from the bumper of the vehicle.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Single photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
That is a photo that I took of item 3-3.
Your Honor, come up, so you can introduce them as the next exhibit.
No objection, Mr. Jackson?
No objection, Your Honor.
198.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9446, please. And Ms. Hanley, in addition to the 5 pieces of glass associated with item 3-3, what else is depicted in this photograph?
This is a photo of the 5 total pieces that are from item 3-3.
And in addition to that, is there a ruler depicted in this photograph as well?
Yes, there is.
And what is the purpose of that ruler in the photograph?
It's there just as a scale.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman. You can take that one down. And Ms. Hanley, the last of those, item 7-14, if you could just remind the jury as far as what was the physical description that was provided to you in reference to item 7-14.
Sure. So item 7-14 was a clear piece of glass with broken irregular edges that was recovered from the road.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes.
And Ms. Hanley, just showing you a single photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize?
This is a photo that I took of item 7-14.
Now, come up, so you can introduce them to the next exhibit. No objection.
All right.
199.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9471, please.
So
And again,
the two screens don't match.
no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hanley, again, if you could just describe for the jury what is depicted in the photograph up on the screen.
This is the photo that I took of item 7-14.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. So, Ms. Hanley, in addition to the physical match analysis that you did between item 3-2, the cup, and 6 of the pieces that you found to be a physical match from item 7-12, did you also compare pieces from item 3-2, 7-12, and 7-14?
Yes, I did.
And what did you conclude in your physical match analysis of those items together?
So upon examining and comparing item 3-2, 7-12, and 7-14, I had concluded that 6 of the 9 pieces of glass from 7-12 physically fit with item 3-2, and the remaining 3 of the 9 from 7-12 did not have a physical fit to item 3-2. I also compared item 3-2 and 7-12 to 7-14, but there was no physical match to item 7-14.
Now, in addition to that, did you also do a physical match analysis between item 3-2, the drinking glass, 7-12, pieces found from the roadway, and certain pieces from 3-3 from the bumper of the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And what did you conclude based on that physical match analysis between those items?
So upon examining and comparing those items, so there were 5 total pieces of glass from item 3-3. I used 2 of those pieces for physical match comparison to the items recovered from the road. Upon my examination, I did not, there was no physical match between those 2 pieces from item 3-3 to any of the pieces recovered from the road. So that included items 3-2, 7-12, and 7-14.
Now, as far as the 2 pieces that you had selected from item 3-3, do you recall which of those 2 lettered pieces you chose for your comparative analysis?
Yes.
And which were they?
They were pieces A and B.
And if I could ask why pieces A and B versus other pieces?
So A and B were used for physical match. The remaining 3 of the 5 were not used for physical match comparison due to their size and condition.
Now, those same 2 pieces from item 3-3, pieces A and B, did you then do a physical match analysis between that and 7-14?
I did.
And what did you conclude from that analysis?
I concluded that there was no physical match between the 2 pieces from item 3-3 to item 7-14.
Now, did you also do a physical match analysis between piece E from item 3-3 from the bumper?
I did not. Not a physical match examination.
Did you do any comparative analysis between a piece of glass E from 3-3 from the bumper and item 7-14?
Yes, I did.
And what did you conclude from that analysis?
So I selected piece E for further examination, I did microscopic examination as well as instrumental analysis, and I did the same microscopic and instrumental analysis to 7-14, and I compared the data, and I came to the conclusion that the piece that I sampled from item 3-3, piece E, was found to be consistent in physical and instrumental properties to the sample that I took from item 7-14.
If you could, Ms. Hanley, could you please explain to the jury when you say instrumental analysis? What is that? What does that consist of?
So the instrumental analysis that I conducted was on the GRIM instrument, which measures the refractive index of the samples. So after I had ran my samples for both item 3-3 and 7-14, I compared the data to determine whether they were consistent or not consistent.
And so when you say that something is consistent in instrumental properties, what does that mean?
So in this instance, they had consistent refractive indices.
In addition to that comparative analysis for the glass items, what other additional examinations did you perform in this case?
Sorry, could you say that again?
In addition to items 3-2, 3-3, 7-12, and 7-14, what other items did you look at in this case?
So I also examined item 3-1 and item 7-18.18.
And what was the description provided to you in reference to item 3-1?
3-1 was a taillight, and there were also some other plastic pieces as well.
And taillight from the same vehicle as the glass from the bumper, correct?
Yes.
May I approach, Ron?
Yes.
You have another single photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
This is the photo that I took of item 3-1.
You're on call, see if you introduce this.
Thank you.
May I publish, Ron?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9394. And Ms. Hanley, do you recognize what's up on the screen as exhibit 200?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize it to be?
This is the photo that I took of item 3-1.
And what's contained in here, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what the item 3-1, the taillight housing, looked like when you received it?
Yes.
Now, as far as, and we'll get to this more a bit in a moment, but as far as any sort of comparative analysis that you did with any other item, what part of this taillight housing were you comparing to that other item?
So there were clear and red plastic portions of the taillight that appeared to be broken. So I sampled portions of the clear plastic as well as the red plastic on the taillight.
And just for clarity purposes, if you could with the pointer, as far as which of these pieces up on the screen were you sampling the clear and or the red plastic from?
So the red plastic that I sampled was from this area. It's a little hard to tell from here. I think I'd have to refer to my photo in my notes, but I think there were a couple of different areas that had clear broken plastic. I think this might have been one of the areas that was broken that I sampled.
And just for my purposes, really what I'm asking, Ms. Hanley, is the clear plastic that you used from item 3-1 was from the housing unit itself, the large piece, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, the other item that you were comparing this to was item 7-18.18. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what was provided to you as the description of that item, 7-18.18?
7-18.18 was debris that was collected from 2 pieces of clothing from the victim.
And specifically, that would be 7-17, an orange T-shirt. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yeah.
Okay, as well as 7-18, a gray long sleeve shirt. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you say that item 7-18.18 contained debris, what did that debris consist of?
So the debris consisted of one clear piece of plastic, as well as several pieces of red plastic, among some other trace material.
Now, were there measurements taken of those items within the debris, specifically the clear plastic and the red plastic?
Yes.
And what were those measured to be?
I would just need to refer to my report for that.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so the clear piece of plastic in 7-18.18, it measured approximately 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. And then I measured the largest and the smallest of the red plastic pieces. And the largest piece of red plastic measured approximately 1/16 of an inch by less than a 1/16 of an inch. And the smallest piece among those measured approximately less than a 1/16 of an inch by less than 1/16 of an inch.
And so those particular pieces that you measured, about how small are we talking about?
So the largest, for the red plastic, the largest piece measured, just for visual purposes, it's roughly like the size of a grain of rice. The rest of the pieces were smaller than that.
And who within the lab provided that debris in that taillight housing to your unit, to the trace unit?
So the debris from the clothing was transferred to my unit by Maureen Hartnett, and the taillight was submitted to the lab by Trooper Christopher Moore.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a series of 5 photographs. You can review those in a couple of minutes. Generally speaking, Ms. Hanley, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Those are the photographs that I took of 7-18.18.
Commonwealth seeks to introduce and admit as an exhibit A through E.
Thank you. It's 201, A through E.
Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9352. And Ms. Hanley, what is depicted in this photograph on the screen?
So this is one of the photos that I took of 7-18.18. This is how I received the clear piece of plastic.
And is that a tin that it's encased in at the time that you receive it?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9355.
Yep.
And what is this, Ms. Hanley?
So this is a photo of the clear piece of plastic that was within that tin.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9364. And Ms. Gilman, if you can enlarge this just a bit. Maybe just a little more, please. Thank you. And Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at in this photograph?
This is the photo that I took of the debris that was collected from the clothing items.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9366. And again, Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at here?
This is a photo that I took under a microscope of the red plastic pieces that I noted within the debris.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, if we could have photograph 9369. And Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at here?
This is a picture that I took of the red plastic pieces that I removed from the debris.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, Ms. Hanley, in reference to your comparative analysis from item 3-1, the taillight housing plastic, to the clear and red plastic pieces of debris from debris from item 7-18.18, the clothing of Mr. O'Keefe, what types of instruments did you utilize in this comparative analysis?
Sure. So after completing my examination, I utilized a comparison microscope as well as a polarized microscope, a FTIR, which is a Fourier transform infrared spectrometer. And I also used a microspectrophotometer, also known as a microspec.
You would have
And what is a microspec?
most interesting in a
So a
conversation.
microspec is an analytical tool that we can use to examine samples that have color. So it provides information on the sample's dyes and pigments.
And how is that utilized in your comparative analysis?
So I ran samples from both items that I was comparing, and I compared the data from those two items as a part of my comparative analysis.
And when you run that sort of data, can you describe for the jury sort of what that data looks like? Like, what are you physically seeing when you're examining the data from the microspec?
So what we refer to it as a spectrum or just a graph. And when we do the comparison, we can overlay those spectra or graph to determine if they are consistent or not consistent.
And I know you spoke a little bit about it in your testimony yesterday, but if you could remind the jury as far as an FTIR, what is that and how is that used in your analysis?
So an FTIR is another analytical tool that we can use a sample is exposed to infrared light and it reacts in a certain way with that light.
No worries,
And
we're
what's
not.
produced is a spectrum of peaks and valleys that are representative and unique to your sample. And
Stay safe,
so
Mom.
that instrument was used to run samples from both items, and then the data was compared from both items.
Now, from your comparison of, starting with the clear plastic from the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, from your comparative analysis of that clear plastic to the clear plastic from item 3-1, the tail light, what did you conclude?
So the clear plastic from the debris was found to be consistent in color and instrumental properties to the clear plastic from the tail light. So accordingly, the clear plastic from the debris could have originated from the clear plastic from the tail light or from another source with the same characteristics.
And with reference to the red plastic from item 7-18.18 from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, in your comparison of that red plastic with the red plastic from the passenger side tail light of the defendant's vehicle, item 3-1, what did you conclude from that analysis?
So the red plastic that I sampled from from the debris from the clothing from 7-18.18 was found to be consistent in color, microscopic appearance, and instrumental properties with the portions that I sampled from the red plastic from the tail light. So accordingly, the red plastic from item 7-18.18 could have originated from the red plastic that I sampled from the tail light or from another source with the same characteristics.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, if I could just hold on 1 minute while the sirens pass. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes. Actually, is this a good time to take a break, Mr. Lally?
Probably have to record. I probably have another 3-4 minutes left.
I'm going to see counsel for 2 minutes, folks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As I told you earlier, we're ahead of schedule, so we will take a luncheon break, and we'll take an hour. So I know we'll take an hour. Okay?
All right, then.
So, we're just going to
All right, to the court, please.
I'll see you back here in an hour then. Go and have a stretch. Go and do some online shopping, yoga. Make yourself a cuppa, whatever you like. And we'll see you back here at 2.
So this is the comparison data from the microspec from the red plastic from the item 3-1 and the red plastic from 7-18.18.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce and admit as the next 3 exhibits individually.
No objection, Your Honor. All right. Thank you.
You want them marked individually or you in a set?
Individually, please. Thank you.
It's 202, 203, and 204.
Thank you.
And again, Ms. Hanley, when it came to your analysis of the clear plastic material from the debris from John O'Keefe's clothing and the clear plastic material from the defendant's taillight, what were your conclusions from that analysis?
Sure. Upon comparison, the clear plastic from item 7-18.18 was found to be consistent in color and instrumental properties with the clear plastic from item 3-1. Accordingly, the clear plastic from 7-18.18 could have originated from the clear plastic from item 3-1 or from another source with the same characteristics.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I publish, and I'm sorry, I forgot already the
Yes.
exhibit numbers, but
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have the clear plastic. And Ms. Hanley, can you describe for the jury what we're looking at in this, what's up on the screen right now?
Sure. So this is the FTIR comparison data of the clear plastic from item 3-1 and the clear plastic from item 7-18.18.
And Ms. Hanley, if you could, using the laser pointer before you, if you could direct the jury's attention to which is which as far as the top and bottom.
Sorry. The top,
That's okay.
the top spectrum is item 3-1, and the bottom spectrum is item 7-18.18.
And Ms. Hanley, when you're comparing these two as far as the data that you receive, what is it specifically that you're looking at in your comparison as far as the data is concerned?
So when I'm comparing the spectra, I'm looking at the peaks in each sample to determine if they are consistent or not consistent.
Thank you. And if I could turn your attention to the red plastic material from the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing and the red plastic from the passenger side taillight of the defendant's vehicle, what did you conclude in your analysis there?
So upon comparison, the red plastic from 7-18.18 was found to be consistent in color, microscopic appearance, and instrumental properties with the red plastic from item 3-1. So accordingly, the red plastic from 7-18.18 could have originated from the red plastic from item 3-1 or from another source with the same characteristics.
Thank you. And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the red plastic data. And Ms. Hanley, directing your attention to the screen again with the laser pointer, if you could delineate for the jury as far as which set of data is associated with which item.
So the top spectrum is item 3-1, and the bottom spectrum is item 7-18.18.
And again, if you could just direct the jury's attention with that laser pointer to the areas as far as the data peaks and valleys that you're looking at in comparison of this data.
So when I'm comparing them, I'm comparing the peaks to each other in each of the spectra to determine if they are consistent or not consistent.
And in this case, you found them to be consistent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, lastly, if I could have the microspec data. And Ms. Hanley, if you could describe for the jury, please, what are we looking at in this particular data set?
So this is the comparison data from the microspec of the red plastic from item 3-1 and the red plastic from 7-18.18.
And as far as the data in any microspec, but particularly this one up on the screen, using that laser pointer, could you illustrate to the jury sort of what these individual lines or what this data means?
So these are the samples that I ran, and they samples that I ran from item 3-1 and 7-18.18, and the spectra are overlaid in order to determine, to look at it and to determine whether they have a consistent or not consistent pattern.
And from overlaying the data from the pieces of plastic from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing and the pieces of plastic from the defendant's taillight, what do you observe as far as from overlaying those two sort of data points?
So I determined that that they had consistent microspec data.
Again, if you could just remind the jury as far as the microspec data, what type of data is that?
So the microspec, it analyzes samples that have color. So it provides information of a sample's dyes or pigments.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Thank you, Ms. Hanley. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hanley.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you again. We met about a year ago. First things first, you were just talking about some plastic pieces in 7-18.8, correct?
It was 7-18.18.
0.18, I left a 1 out. 7-18.18. We're dealing with a lot of numbers. I'm going to see if we can cut through that here in a second.
Sure.
First of all, you indicated that you were doing a comparative analysis in different, different categorical ways, using microscopy, using the microspec, using the FTIR. I think you also use the FTIR in that as well.
Yes.
And you indicated that your analysis concluded with those pieces could have come from the same source, from the source in 3-1, the taillight. But you're not conclusively saying they did, correct?
It could have come from, they could have a common origin, or it could have come from another source with the same characteristics.
Right. So in other words, another way to say that, Ms. Hanley, is it may have come from the taillight, may not have.
It's a possibility.
Okay. I also want to ask you real quick about the taillight manufacturer. You were shown an exhibit. I think it's exhibit 200, and I think we have that available. With the court's permission, we don't have to cut the lights. I think the lighting is just fine. This is exhibit, or a photograph of exhibit 200 that you saw just a second ago. Quick question about that. In your inspection of that taillight, it's true, is it not, that is manufactured entirely of plastic or plasticine pieces? There is no glass in that taillight, correct?
I have to check my notes. I don't think I noted any glass.
Okay. So in other words, you didn't note any glass inherent in the manufacture of that taillight. It's basically plastic.
Yeah, I think most of the parts were plastic. I'm not 100% sure if the entire thing was plastic. There may have been other material, but portions were plastic.
But you certainly didn't see any glass inherent in the manufacture process.
I'd have to double check my notes, but I don't think I did.
Okay.
Do you want her to check her notes?
Why don't you? Are your notes in front of you?
Yes.
With the court's permission.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so I did not make any notation that I noted portions that were glass.
Great. Final point before we get into the actual analysis. On any of the glass, I want to shift gears to just the glass material that you analyzed and that you looked at and you inspected. You saw no blood, no skin, no biological material, no tissue, human tissue or otherwise, on any of those pieces that you inspected, did you?
Upon examination of those items, making observations of those types of material, that's not my area of expertise. I don't think I noted anything that was maybe consistent with that.
So in other words, even though you're not in the bio material expert section of the lab, you certainly would have noted if there was skin or biological material or obvious blood on glass pieces. You were looking at them in many cases through a stereo microscope, correct?
Yes, I would have made note of observations of anything that I would have noted on the surface.
Great, and you did not, because you didn't see anything. You suggested that, right?
I think I just made note, I have to check each item, but I think I did note that there was some dirt debris on some of the items.
But not biological material.
I did not note anything that would be maybe consistent with that.
Great, thank you. I want to talk about the comparisons that you did. And you'll forgive me, I'm a visual learner. So I'd like to talk about it in 4 categories.
Okay.
Linear categories. Category 1, item 3-2. Category 2, item 3-3. Category 3, item 7-12. Category 4, item 7-14. 3, 2, 3, 3, 7, 12, 7, 14. Can we talk about them in those particulars?
Sure.
Okay. 3-2 was the cup, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I'm going to use the word cup rather than glass for obvious reasons. You can get confused by that. So when I say the cup, do you know what I'm talking about?
Item 3-2.
Great. 3-3 are the 5 items that were found on the bumper, claimed to have been found on the bumper by NSP or crime. Okay?
Yes.
5 items, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Correct.
Item 7-12 are 9 items, glass items, that were recovered at 34 Fairview by Trooper Buchanan in an evidence envelope, correct?
So sustained as to who they were recovered from.
Sure. Did you receive the items along with an evidence envelope?
I need to double check if it was an envelope, but I received it packaged.
Okay. And the packaging normally, under normal circumstances, the packaging comes with labels. It gives you reference about where things came from. For instance, when Mr. Lally asked you, were you aware or did you become aware that items were claimed to have been found on the bumper? You didn't actually find those items, but that was the description you were given, correct?
That was the description of the item in our limb system.
Okay. And going back to 7-12, that's our 3rd category. Was that described as 9 pieces of glass that were found at 34 Fairview by a sergeant by the name of Buchanan? Or do you recall that?
I am not sure who recovered them.
Well, what it said on the evidence envelope, that's what I'm asking.
I would have to check my photos to see if it says that.
We'll get to that in just a second. But fair enough. 7-12, 9 items, A, B, C, D, E. And if my memory serves, I, K, and L.
I'd have to refer to my notes to.
Can you please?
Yes. So the 9 pieces of glass from 7-12 were labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, I, K, and L.
Great. And then finally, what was in 7-14, that's an easy one, 1 piece of glass.
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I could, Ms. Hanley, I'm going to hand you photographs. That should be 2 photographs of the exact same thing. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
I've never seen. I did not take this photo.
Understood.
So I'm not. I haven't seen them, so I don't know.
So I'm asking you to look. I know you haven't seen
Yeah.
that photo. Does it look like the cup?
It looks consistent with the cup.
Okay. Just set this aside for a second. Take a look at the second photo. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photo?
So I did not take this photo. It appears to be a photo of a container that another analyst took a photo of item 7-12.
And item 7-12 once again included plastic pieces and 9 glass pieces, correct?
Correct.
Do you see the evidence label on the very top of that evidence envelope?
I'm not sure which label you're talking
The
about.
one
Oh,
under the red tape.
yes.
Does that appear to be a label marker that's done to maintain chain of custody?
So I think that label. Sorry.
Sure, can we bring these over to the side?
Sure.
jurors, sometimes we're at sidebar in an effort to try and speed things up. So even though we take your time that way, this should make things move a little easier. So you can cut that from that.
Thank you. Ms. Hanley, I was asking you previously, we already looked at what's been marked for identification as triple G. I was asking you about what has now been marked as triple H. If you'll just look at that, what I'm most interested in is, do you see a name, a trooper's name in the middle of that evidence bag?
Yes, I do.
Is that Buchanan?
It looks like it says that, yeah.
Okay, and just so we're clear, that bag is associated with 7-12 of your analysis. The item 7-12, correct?
Yes, again, I didn't take this photo, but I have,
I
yeah.
realize that. It says 7-12
Yeah.
right on the photo. doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's all I need. Taking a look at what's been marked as triple I for identification. Do you see a name associated with that evidence bag?
Yes.
What name is that?
It's actually a little hard to read. It looks like it says, it could say Trooper Proctor.
Okay, and that is associated with 7-14, our fourth category, correct?
It is labeled as, excuse me, 7-14.
Thank you. And finally, does that, which has been marked as, for identification at least, as triple J, does that appear to be the contents of that bag, which is a single piece of glass in 7-14?
This appears to be the photo that the analyst prior to me took of item 7-14.
And that would be analyst Valier.
Correct.
You see her initials there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the four categories, just so we're clear and we can stop using so many numbers because they can get confusing. 3-2 is the cup, right?
Yes.
3-3 is the bumper glass, correct?
That is correct.
7-12 is the Buchanan glass, correct? You just looked at it.
Yes.
Okay. 7-14 is the Proctor glass, the single piece, correct?
Correct.
So when I make reference to those items by those names, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yes.
Hesitant.
No, I just, I'm just used to referring to them to the item numbers, but I will try to stay with you.
My brain will melt if we continue that way.
Can she do it both, Mr. Jackson?
Sure. Any way that you wish. I have another document that I would like to approach with, if I could, with the court's permission.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like you to take a look at that. You've got a copy of this. Have you ever seen that before, or a variation of it?
Yes.
Okay. Saw it last year, correct? Or something close to it last year?
Yeah, it looks consistent.
Okay.
Okay. If there are any others, Mr. Jackson, why don't we bring all the
This is it.
So I think I gave somebody the copy that I was using. I need a copy.
If I may approach?
Yes. Thank you. All right, so let's mark this first for identification.
Happy to.
KKK for ID.
Ms. Hanley, if I could ask you very briefly, I want to go through this chalk with you for a moment. Do you recognize something on the left, looking at the first category? Do you see 3-2?
Yes,
How is that described?
it's described as a cup.
Okay, and you see that there's a photographic representation of the cup just above it, correct?
It looks consistent with,
Okay. Moving to the second category. What category is that?
it's item 3-3.
And 3-3, first of all, there's a photograph above it. Do you see that?
Yes,
It appears to be of a bumper, correct?
yes,
You didn't take that picture.
I did not.
Okay, let's look down beneath it. You indicated that there were 5 items in 3-3, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Correct.
Do you see A, B, C, D, and E represented in that category on this chart?
I do see A, B, C, D, E categorized, yes.
Great. Under A, you previously testified that the bumper glass sub A in 3-3 did not match the cup, correct?
That's correct.
Did not match anything in 7-12?
Sorry, just give me one moment. That's correct.
And did not match anything in 7-14?
That's correct.
And you see those represented by sort of the international symbol for negative, correct? A circle with a line through it. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Under subcategory B, glass B, or item 3-3B, did not match the cup, did not match 7-12, did not match 7-14.
That's correct.
Is that accurately represented on the chart?
Yes.
Finally, with regard to E as an echo in that same item, 3-3, you see that there is a green indication that glass recovered by Proctor does match or did match in your analysis or was consistent with the item in 7-14, correct?
It was consistent microscopically and instrumentally.
Does that accurately reflect that finding on this chart?
Yes.
Okay, now turning to category 3. There were 9 pieces of glass that you looked at, correct?
Correct.
A through F, I, K, and L. Is that right?
If I could just reference my report to make sure.
Of course.
Yes, those are the correct letters.
And A, B, C, D, F, and K all matched the cup, correct?
Again, I would just need to confirm with my report.
Take your time.
Yes, so A, B, C, D, F, and K
All matched the cup.
had a physical match to 3-2, the cup.
Is that accurately represented on this chart? With green.
Yes.
And E is an echo, I is in India, and I think that's L is in Lima, did not match the cup, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, is that accurately represented on this chart?
Yes.
And finally, the last category, 7-14, that is the single piece of glass that was recovered by Trooper Proctor. That did not match the cup, and it did not match anything in 7-12, correct? need to check your notes, feel free.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that accurately represented on the chart?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admission with the amendment that the court indicated at sidebar of triple K.
Okay, I'm going to allow it in.
205.
205? Your Honor, the court indicated that it would like to see us before anything's published to the jurors.
Okay, come on over for a second. Actually, have those have those been done?
It has been done,
Okay.
and I was going to explain at sidebar.
All right, then come on over. $205.
Thank you. Request permission to publish.
Yes.
Ms. Hanley, you see the chalk that's been, or actually what's been marked as Exhibit 205 in evidence on the screen?
Yes.
Is that consistent with what you and I were just talking about at the witness stand?
Yes.
If you'll direct your attention to the screen on the right, just because it's a little easier and I think the laser pointer shows up a little better. You see the 4 categories represented in this exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. So 3-2, I'm going to go over it very quickly one more time, just visually. 3-2 on the left is the cup, correct?
Yes.
3-3 represents the 5 pieces of glass of what we call the bumper glass, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Yes.
7-12 is the 9 pieces of glass recovered by Trooper Buchanan at 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
And finally, 7-14 is the single piece of glass recovered by Trooper Proctor, correct?
Yes.
Taking these one by one, just so everybody see. Taking these one by one, looking at starting with the bumper glass, category 2. Piece A did not match the cup, anything in 7-12 or anything in 7-14, correct?
That's correct.
Piece B did not match the cup, did not match anything in 7-12, did not match anything in 7-14, correct?
That's correct.
And moving over to category 3, there were some matches in these 9 items, 6 of them, A, B, C, D, F, and K, correct?
Yes.
But what those matched, Ms. Hanley, with a cup, nothing on the bumper, correct?
Correct.
And what didn't match the cup were E, I, and L. Is that right?
That's correct.
Moving back to category 2, however, there was one thing, item E, that did match something in this series of categories. Isn't that right?
Not a physical match, but instrumentally there was consistency.
All right. And this is an item, the only piece of bumper glass, the only piece of bumper glass to match anything else in your analysis. Matched what? What was consistent with what?
Item 3-3, piece E, was consistent in physical and instrumental properties with the sample that I took from item 7-14.
Which is the single piece of glass recovered by Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes.
But not a single piece of glass, nothing that you analyzed coming from that bumper matched the cup. Did it? Nothing.
Physical match comparison, there was no physical match comparison to the cup.
Are we done with this, Mr. Jackson?
We can take this down, Your Honor. Your Honor, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Wiley?
Now, Ms. Hanley, as far as you were asked some questions on cross-examination about biological pieces or tissue or things being on the glass, and you referenced that that was done in another unit, correct?
Yes, if that type of examination was needed, that would be done in a different unit.
I'm going to allow that, but next question.
Which unit would that be conducted in?
Objection.
So the objection sustained. You need more, Mr. Wiley, before you move on.
Now, as far as the chalk that you were just presented, as far as the 4 photographs that were depicted in there, have you ever seen any of those 4 photographs before?
No.
Do you know specifically who or where any of the items 3-2, 3-3, 7-12, or 7-4 were physically recovered from?
I just have the description that's put in the LIMS system when it's submitted to the lab.
And do you know that 3-2, the drinking glass, was recovered by the Canton Police Department on January 29th, 2022?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know that item 3-3, the bumper glass, was recovered by Ms. Maureen Hartnett from your lab on February 1st, 2022?
Sustained.
Do you know that each of the 4 items were recovered by different people on different dates at different locations?
No approach.
Yes.
I'm going to pause here and say, well, yes, you fucking rock. The defense rests.
wrong at school is how great Marcia is at this or how wonderful Marcia did that. Arca, arca, arca.
Ms. Hanley, from your conclusions that you testified about before, you found that the item 3-2, the drinking glass, was consistent with 6 different pieces from item 7-12 that were found in the roadway outside of 34 Fairview Road, correct?
That's correct.
And you also found that piece E from item 3-3, the bumper glass, was consistent with the single piece from item 7-14 that was found in the roadway outside of 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you also found that items from 7-18.18, the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, were consistent with the item 3-1, the taillight housing, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained as to form.
Now, as far as the chalk that you were presented with on cross-examination, was there anything in there about item 7-18.18 or item 3-1, either the taillight housing or the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing?
No, there was not.
Nothing further.
Anything?
Very briefly. So in sum, not a single piece of glass on that bumper can be connected to that cup, correct?
There was no physical match to the pieces that I compared for physical match from the bumper. There was no physical match to the glass cup 3-2.
Thank you. So another way of saying that is not a single piece of glass that you analyzed on that bumper matched that cup, correct?
Sustained.
But the one piece of glass that did match something came from the same source. It was consistent with coming from the same source as the single piece of glass recovered when in possession of or bagged by Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
It was consistent with item 7-14.
That's all.
All right, Ms. Hanley, you are all set. I'm going to see counsel for a minute. Jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch. All right, so Jurors, I know you don't like it when we're at sidebar. We don't like it when we're at sidebar, but I can tell you that after speaking to the lawyers now, we're ahead of schedule. And they've worked very hard to get us to this point where we're ahead of schedule so that tomorrow, instead of being a half a day, you have tomorrow off. So you have tomorrow and Friday, a good long weekend. It's very, very important. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't say a word about this case. Don't let anybody say anything to you about this case. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. I believe next week, except for Thursday, are full days every day. Watch your social media use this weekend as well. Have a great long weekend. We'll see you here Tuesday morning, ready to go.
Court, all rise to the jury.
Goodbye.
So no one needs to see me about anything? We get cleared up.
Put on the record that what's been marked for as actions of interpreted evidence 205, we're in the process of printing a new one. The one that actually went into evidence is not the one that we showed.
Okay.
Instructions. We'll get that printed and to you. I think before we leave, I think he's printing it now.
Right. I'd like it before we leave. So before you leave. So, all right. All right. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Court, all rise.
I don't know why I'm typing when I can actually just talk. I'm an idiot. And I'm one finger typing too. My hands are cold. Well, it doesn't look like they've got any motions being heard over the next couple of days, and Monday's your public holiday. So I will find something, don't you worry. Well, yes, that's right. Yep. I was actually going to say I have uploaded all of his transcripts to the database as well. And we could perhaps even, we've got 5 days. Yeah, we might be able to knock over a couple of days with him, perhaps. Because I think it's 7 or 8 days, I think his trial is. And I've also got, do you remember me saying to you ages ago that there was a trial for this couple, Erin Murdy and Rowan Waters, and their daughter, or her daughter, Oakley Snow, beautiful little girl that they left in an abandoned house in a dresser drawer. Well, she was supposed to go on trial last week, but she's taken a plea deal, and she's going to testify against him, which starts under my mum. I can't remember. I've got it written down somewhere, but yeah, I want to cover that one, even if I do it as just a presentation. And there was also the Bunak Hannah case where she killed her partner's daughter and then put her in a paint bucket and wheeled her in the wheelbarrow to the mother's house. That's been done. So I'm going to present that one as a story presentation type of thing. And then I think then will be there's something else coming up. I can't remember. When does the Coburger start? Yeah, there's heaps on. Don't you worry, heaps on. And I've still got to finish off that bloody Ruiz trial. The I only got day one through, and I went to hospital. So that was the Connecticut killer. So I won't be doing them all live. I will only do the Chandler Holderson one full. The rest I think I'll just do as like recaps or presentations type of thing. So because I've done all of the background work, I've done all of the thumbnails, I've done all of the present, so it's just a matter of finding the timestamps in the trial and presenting bits of it, the most important bits. So yeah, that's my next job. Plus I've got pain management clinic next Friday. Yeah, that's all right. We'll get done. So you've seen it, haven't you? Because he dismembered both of his parents, and they found the father's torso at his girlfriend's place. Oh, it'll be interesting if you've seen it. Write down some questions that you've got, and I'll put them in because I've already got it in there. Like anything that you remember from watching it, that you wanted to double check or you wanted more detail on or anything like that, just email me, darling, and or DM me in Discord, whatever. And yeah, I might try and organise. Oh, well, we've got 5 days off Karen Reid. I might be able to. I emailed Miss Shorty this afternoon to see if she wanted to do a collab with me on something different, something other than Karen Reid. So we might be able to get one of those in this week. That's if I don't hear back from Steve, who I'm going to message right now. All right. I'm busting for the bathroom and my bum is numb. So that's me done. Probably too much information, but that's me. And I will be on tomorrow night. I'll find something to chat about. Don't you worry about that. Even if we continue our Temu search. All right, my lovely. Stay safe. Stay warm. Don't get too wet and wild. And if you hear from Uda Hef, send him my love. I have messaged him, but yeah. All right. Look after yourselves. Love to all. And I will see you same place, same time, same bat channel. And for fuck's sake, stay away from Hank Brennan. Nighty night.
It's been 12 months since acquittal, and so much has passed us by. Such as tampering with evidence, and some blatant flat-out lies. I bet he wears those silky undies, the ones with that jean made of lace. So you can bring in Massachusetts, 'cause we all